Does our final visit to Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous mean a new DLC coming to Jurassic World Evolution 2? I think yes. Hello everyone and thanks for clicking on this video. Camp Cretaceous is getting one more episode mid-November titled Hidden Adventures. It's an interactive, choose your own adventure style episode where you as the viewer make key decisions for the characters, which determines the progression of the story. You've probably seen the trailer for it already. If not, fret not, we'll go through the details in this video. There is some exciting stuff in this episode, all the more exciting because of what it could mean for our parks in Jurassic World Evolution 2. The game has already had a Camp Cretaceous DLC a few months ago. Interestingly, this DLC was missing some content, most notably Little Edie. Big Edie was included as an alternate T-Rex skin, but not Little Edie. Sus. There was more missing from the DLC, like the Smilodon and the Spinoceratops, but you could argue that those don't fit into the game very well and therefore might never make the cut. And there were also some minor missing skin options like Burnt Toro, the Spinosaurus skin, and another glowy Parasaurolophus. Since that DLC, Camp Cretaceous Season 5 has launched, adding one more important thing to the list of missing things, a whole new species, namely Nothosaurus. Final point to note before we start discussing the new Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure trailer is that after the previous updates to Jurassic World Evolution 2, hints towards a zipline attraction were found in the game code. Although just because the word zipline popped up in the game's code doesn't necessarily mean it will actually make it into the game. But it was very interesting to have been added during one of the updates. All of that added up means there is already plenty of material to justify a second Camp Cretaceous DLC, and that it's not far-fetched to assume that something is coming. Well, the Hidden Adventures trailer adds even more content to that, and as such an even higher probability to a second DLC. First off, the episode revisits some things we've seen from past seasons, like an encounter with Burnt Toro, which recreates the possibility of that specific skin coming to the game after all. The campers also revisit previous locations like the Raptor Paddock and the Lagoon Stands, so a possible return of the zipline would be a good excuse to chuck that into the game. Remember that the Hidden Adventures episode is interactive, so the story branches out in many different directions, giving plenty of opportunity for stuff from past seasons to return, therefore opening the door for them to be included in this possible DLC. More excitingly though is not so much the rehash of things we've seen before, but that the Hidden Adventures trailer shows us two new things. A new Tyrannosaurid dinosaur, already hypothesized to be Tarbosaurus, as the design of this on-screen dinosaur does resemble that of the official Mattel toy very closely. Tarbosaurus is a fan favorite species that is interestingly still missing from the game, so it would be nice for it to find its way into our parks like this. Whatever it is, the dinosaur is very similar to the Jurassic World T-Rex in physique, but with the addition of spikes and osteoderms. Certainly very cool looking to add to our existing roster of dinosaurs. The trailer also shows the campers riding a roller coaster, which harkens back to the Bone Shaker from the Telltale Jurassic Park game. Getting a roller coaster in Jurassic World Evolution 2 would be a very big deal, considering more attractions is a recurring wish many players have for the game. A roller coaster and a zipline attraction would almost feel like we're being spoiled. It is important to note that Camp Cretaceous over the past years, as its seasons have gone by, has shown us the zipline and the canoe ride, but neither attraction was ever added into the game, at least not up until now. So the appearance of a roller coaster in this episode does not necessarily mean that it is coming into our game as an attraction. Just as a little aside. But it is very important to note that we now have a quite extensive list of missing things. And with the hint of ziplines already being present in the game's coding, it would certainly suggest that we have another Camp Cretaceous DLC coming our way. The Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventures DLC. It would technically make sense for this Camp Cretaceous DLC to have more than just dinosaurs and skins. Dinosaur Pack 2 just doesn't have an appealing ring to it. By throwing in at the very least the zipline attraction, it elevates the DLC beyond just another pack. And having just one attraction might seem kinda random, so why not add the roller coaster and perhaps even the canoe ride? But it gets dicey when we consider that Frontier has never done a DLC for Jurassic World Evolution 1 or 2 that has had dinosaurs and attractions but no story. It's always been either a strict dinosaur pack or a large full story DLC. So does that mean this new Camp Cretaceous DLC would be a big DLC that includes story then? I'm hesitant to say, as I don't see how Camp Cretaceous fits into the story campaign of the game. It would veer the story of the campaign way off course, and I'm just not convinced they are going to take this route. The Chaos Theory menu seems perfectly filled at this point. There's literally no room to add something for Camp Cretaceous, so the only option that I would feel they're realistically left with is a challenge mode dedicated to Camp Cretaceous, which would introduce the Manticore Island as the location. The problem with the Manticore Island is that it does something that none of the other maps in the game does, which is have multiple biomes in a singular location, which makes me doubt that we'll get something like that. For all of those reasons, I don't see this Camp Cretaceous DLC having any story gameplay. Now, because Frontier has never done a DLC that's just added species and attractions, doesn't mean it's impossible. It would just be something entirely new, which I will say makes it less likely. I'm personally more inclined to believe that if we are getting a second Camp Cretaceous DLC, it will not be a big DLC that includes story, because I think that slot is already taken up by the anticipated Malta DLC. I explained this in a previous DLC prediction video of mine where, based on Frontier's patterns, I predicted we are getting 2 DLCs at the end of this year, one in November and one in December. One will be big and expensive, one will be small and relatively inexpensive, like past dinosaur packs. In that video, I said I think the big DLC would be the Malta or Black Market DLC, including story gameplay, which just slots into the existing game campaign really seamlessly, and a new Malta map. And I thought the small DLC could potentially be the missing dinosaurs from Camp Cretaceous. At this point in time, I am sticking with that prediction. A Camp Cretaceous story DLC just doesn't mesh with the rest of the game in my opinion. Hopefully though, there not being a story element to this DLC doesn't mean we'll be missing out on at least the zipline attraction. Let's not forget that even if the zipline is not in this DLC, it might still find its way into the game, but just as a non-Camp Cretaceous branded version of the attraction. I think a Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventures dinosaur pack would match the formula of the other Camp Cretaceous DLC perfectly if it gives us the Tarbosaurus and Nothosaurus, 2 new species just like the Scorpius Rex and Monolophosaurus, and a couple of skins like Little Edie, a 3rd Parasaurolophus Lux skin, the Spinosaurus skin, and potentially a burnt Toro skin. I'm omitting the Spinoceratops because we've only seen this species as a juvenile, and realistically they can't randomly give us just one species as a baby and nothing else. That is like a whole can of worms. And if they were to age up the Spinoceratops and give us the adult version in the game, then it won't be exactly what we saw in the show anyway, and that renders the addition kind of moot. People are a fan specifically what they saw in the show, so they would want that in the game. If it's not exactly that, I fear like, again, that would be just a can of worms. Smilodon is also a difficult one. As a Cenozoic animal, it would stick out like a sore thumb, and therefore I could really not blame Frontier for passing up on this edition, and I'll just keep my fingers crossed that in a perfect best case scenario, we're getting a Cenozoic Creatures update, or DLC I should say, at some point. So yeah, at this moment my prediction still stands firm that the Camp Cretaceous DLC will be the small DLC that we get at the end of this year, possibly only the new species and new skins, potentially also some attractions chucked in, which means it gets a little bit more expensive, but not as expensive as a story DLC, and then the big DLC will be the Malta DLC. But I could have it entirely wrong. It could be flipped the other way. Maybe the Camp Cretaceous DLC is the big DLC that we're getting at the end of the year, and the Malta DLC will just be reduced to the missing species. Which I'm not even all that mad about. I would just really mourn the loss of a Malta map. What do you think this new Camp Cretaceous DLC could be? Just dinosaurs? A first ever pack of dinosaurs and attractions? Or a full story DLC similar in size to the Dominion DLC and Return to Jurassic Park, Claire Sanctuary, and Secrets of Dr. Wu from the first game? At the very least, I feel all the more certain that we are getting a second Camp Cretaceous DLC. It's just a matter of what it will contain and when it will release. What caught my attention is that the Hidden Adventures episode will premiere on Netflix on November 15th. 15. Now, in that previous DLC speculation video of mine, you might remember me predicting that we will get one of 2 end-of-year DLCs on November 15. I said that specific date. Obviously, this coincidence is far from proof, but it's certainly very interesting that the launch of this final adventure for the campers lines up with our expectations for Frontier's DLC releases for the game. If we are getting a Hidden Adventures DLC, it would be unusual for them to launch it on the same day as the episode going live. So again, if we are getting a DLC of this sort, it might be a week before or a week after the premiere of the episode. Since it's a what-if kind of episode where the viewer chooses their own adventure, there's no canon here to be considerate of, so there's nothing theoretically to spoil for them, hence it could launch earlier than the actual episode. Either way, it's already the 19th of October. The Hidden Adventures episode is less than 4 weeks away, so if we're getting a DLC for it, we won't be waiting that much longer for the reveal trailer. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.